The big key forward is supposed to be the centerpiece of an AFL team. They do so many things. They can give a huge target to aim at when kicking inside 50, helping smaller crumbing players get into the game, and can take big momentum shifting pack marks. And most importantly, kick a lot of goals to help their side win games. But do you really need a superstar one to win grand finals? Looking at 2023 in Collingwood's team, they had Brodie Mihocek as their primary key forward with support from Cameron, Cox and sometimes Frampton. Mihocek is a very good player, but he is slightly undersized and averaged less than 2 goals per game for the entire year. On the other side, Brisbane had Joe Daniher, who booted 61 total goals, and Eric Hipwood, whose 41 goals was only 6 less than Mihocek's total of 47. Is this an aberration in the competition, or is it the direction of the ever-evolving, fast-paced setup the game seems to be transitioning to? Is it no longer a requirement to spend up or draft high for a star key forward? To try and best figure all this out, let's look over the last 24 premiers and the key forward talent that they had. Instead of trying to determine if a player is average, below average or above average in terms of playing ability, the best way to separate them is through the All-Australian team. Normally, if you are selected in the team as a key forward, you are around a top 3 player in that position for that season. So all the premiership winners with a key forward who was All-Australian any time in their career will be in one group, while the premiers without one in another group. There is quite a bit to take away from the list. Most notably, only 5 of the 24 were able to win with no All-Australian level key forward target. It should be noted for West Coast in 2006 that Quinton Lynch did kick 62 goals that season, so you can absolutely argue that he was All-Australian calibre. Breaking it down into a percentage, equals 79% of the competition winners since 2000 had a high-level key forward. For those that didn't, an interesting trend is 3 of the 5, which includes Bulldogs in 2016, Melbourne in 2021 and Collingwood last year, have all come within the last 8 completed seasons. It's something to keep an eye on. The other really important highlight in the list is with all the dynasty teams. All of them belong on the left side of the list. Brisbane won their 3 flags with Alistair Lynch and a young Jonathan Brown holding down their forward line. Geelong had Cameron Mooney for 2007 and 2009, while adding now veteran Tom Hawkins as a big partner alongside him before handing the reins to him in 2011. Hawthorn had Jared Roughead as their key forward, and you can even throw in Jack Gunston as well, although his play style was more like a medium tall than a traditional big mark pack player. And finally Richmond, who started off with Jack Riewoldt before acquiring Tom Lynch at the end of 2018, propelling them on to a couple more wins. It seems very clear that you need at least 1, if not 2 stars to establish yourself short term to be able to win multiple grand finals in a close span. Going back to the sides to win without one, they did all have at least 1 or 2 other important weapons to contribute to the goal tally. Collingwood went with a smaller approach with Jamie Elliott, Bobby Hill and Jordan De Goey all dynamic, game-changing type players. Sydney planted Adam Goodes far more forward in 2012 to support Sam Reid. In 2021 for the D's, Bailey Fritsch was their main goal scorer, who was so difficult to stop, and Kozzie Pickett's 40 goals were also important. If you don't have the big target, then you must have a couple really elite, pure forwards that not only apply pressure, but kick goals. So does all this mean Collingwood are in trouble in 2024? Well, if you trust the before mentioned data, then yes. They would be the first side this century to win back-to-back flags without any elite key forward talent. Even if they won it next year and made it 2 out of 3 years, it would be well against the grain. It's made much more difficult as well with no Dan McStay, leaving those big forward options with the reliable Mihocek, the Cameron Cox combination, and then Billy Frampton. Ash Johnson and Reef McInnes are listed as key forwards, but definitely aren't at the AFL level. If Collingwood were to win the premiership this year, it would be a relatively historic effort. It also may indicate that the sport itself is moving away from these types of hulking forwards to a more dynamic and quicker set of players surrounded by a hard-working big man who can crash packs while chipping in with a goal and a half per game. If we were to apply this thinking to all the teams in 2024, it will put question marks around a number of big-time teams and favourites. Now, I know there is much more to a winning team than your forward line, but focusing on the general group of contenders and top 8-ish sides, here are the results. Collingwood we already spoke about, the GWS Giants with Jesse Hogan, Jake Riccardi and Aaron Cadman don't qualify, but who needs them when you have Toby Green? Melbourne looks lost up forward, and although Tom McDonald and Ben Brown have had great seasons before, they are barely AFL standard players, so it leaves them with just Jacob Van Rooyen. St Kilda have Max King, so he has some All-Australian potential, and with Sydney losing Lance Franklin, it's up to Logan McDonald and Joel Amati to rise up. Adding all these teams together, and it makes 5 out of last year's top 8 without an All-Australian level key forward. Either these sides are simultaneously going against history, or the way the game is being played is currently changing. Looking at a couple teams that finished outside the top 8, and Adelaide would be a big contender to make a leap. Taylor Walker was All-Australian last year and only seems to be getting better with age. In a similar boat sit Geelong. They don't have a lot of hype or expectation coming into this season, but with 2 elite players in Jeremy Cameron and Tom Hawkins inside 50, you are always a significant threat. But with Gold Coast matching the bid for Jed Walter at pick 2, the Western Bulldogs doing the same for Jamara Ugle-Hagan in 2020, Sam Darcy in 2021, and the Giants picking up Aaron Cadman pick 1 in 2022, it seems as if the clubs still believe they are critical to having success, at least most clubs, with Collingwood deciding to pick up Lachie Schultz from Fremantle for pick 34 and a 2024 first round selection, a hefty price, albeit for a good, smaller player. They might be onto something, placing more value on the creative smalls rather than the powerful big men. 2024 might be a defining year for the future of AFL forward lines.